history, especially in San Diego, not just in general, but in particular in San Diego. And so, so it's really important that we know about the history. And we're really, really lucky because we can read about it and see pictures and things like that, but it's right here. So we have to take advantage of that opportunity. And we're also very, very lucky because the presenter was one of the people who helped found this place. And actually it started at the Ford building, but he'll tell you about that, I'm sure. But he was one of the people that were there when it started. So we're really lucky to have this opportunity to learn from our elders. Salvador, who's going to talk more about that. I will give you a disclaimer that not only do I teach Chicano Studies at City, but I'm also a board member here at the Centro, so I just have to give that just in case, I don't want people saying, why did you do that? So, yes, I'm a board member here, and so as part of that, my responsibilities is to try to make sure that we keep the place open and that we have programming here. So when we were trying to find a place to have this, to do this host Queso, I thought it'd be great that we just brought the class here to the Centro. So I really appreciate your understanding and your flexibility in coming over here to the Centro and coming off campus, because one of the principles of Chicano Studies, even though we don't really talk about this in our class, is making a connection between the Department of Chicano Studies and the community, and bridging those two things together. And so we're doing that today in a way. And so after Queso speaks, we're going to take a break, like a 10 or 15 minute break, and then after that, the rest of the audience will be able to leave, or they can stay if they want to. But as part of my course, we're going to watch a film called Made in LA, and it's a documentary about the garment industry workers in Los Angeles and their efforts to organize. And there's a reading that's associated with that as well that I'm going to hand out too. So after the presentation, don't leave, stay. We're going to stay here after that, and we're going to see the film. And then I'll give you other instructions. I also have homework that I need to get back to a bunch of people, so make sure that you get that before you leave too. And then it's spring break, so you guys get a week off, and we'll see you for a week. And you won't have any homework over spring break. So, but please stay. I have instructions after the break, and we're going to see the film and things like that. So with no further ado, I want to introduce Salvador Torres.
Muchísimas gracias. De primero, les quiero dar gracias. I would like to thank your Mecha President, Juanita Lopez, for inviting me. I also would like to thank your Professor Macias, also on the forefront of the Chicano Studies Department, where we have been working so diligently to educate our gente, particularly our youngest of our people. I'm going to talk a little bit about the flyer I gave everybody. B4, we'll have Park, Chicanos declare, April 24th. This is 2 days after the walkouts to create Chicano Park by the students. And the major of the students that were engaged were all from City College. Then San Diego State, UCSD, and then all the rest of the colleges, universities, and schools joined in. I'd like to draw your attention to Carlos Gonzalez. In the second paragraph, Carlos Gonzalez was the president of the Community Action Council. Think about this, a Community Action Council. This Community Action Council was composed of residents, property owners, businessmen, and students at this time in the 1970s. Carlos Gonzalez, a very dedicated senior of our community. The next one is Mike Amador, Executive Director of the Harbor Community Action Council. Now, listen to these words. The Action Council is important because we're taking action. We're not sitting around letting other people do for us. We are up in the frente. And this is what we were all about. This is before the Chicano Federation, before the Chicano Park Steering Committee, before even some of the student organizations. So it was during this time that it was important. En este tiempo era muy importante para nosotros porque la comunidad trataba de organizarse. Por ejemplo, nosotros organizamos el Consulado de Acción de la Comunidad y habían todos los ancianos apoyando la ideal de ser un parque que se hizo gracias a ustedes, los estudiantes. Si no fuera por los estudiantes, no íbamos a tener este parque. Con el alma y el espíritu fuerte, con el ánimo de los antepasados de la Revolución Mexicana, la Revolución Cubana, la Revolución de San Salvador y Nicaragua, incluyendo la Revolución China. Nosotros basamos nuestro ánimo, nuestro espíritu, nuestro coraje en todo lo que se estaba luchando en este tiempo. Then comes the United Farm Workers. Hubo mucho rejuego para organizar los trabajadores campesinos, controversias, muertes, golpeados, todo. Así es. Cuando yo era un estudiante, pensábamos, la revolución, y que la revolución, pero no sabíamos que la revolución es sangrienta, es fea. Y como dijo el Malcolm X, if you knew what a revolution was all about, you'd get out of the way. You'd get back in the alleys. Porque una revolución es sangrienta. Gracias a Dios que César Chávez se presentó con un ideal de ser non-violent, de no ser violentos. Pero dentro de nuestra comunidad había mucha violencia. Andábamos organizándonos como las buenas cafeses, the Brown Berets, y queríamos defender nuestra comunidad para que ustedes, los estudiantes que están sentados aquí hoy, tengan este privilegio de estar aquí. We struggled in our time period. It was a violent period. During this period, in the second page, where it says police station picketed over arrests, down at the bottom, donde dice an arrest was made but not on the picket line, Salvador Roberto Torres, 33 years old. I'm 67 right now. I was 33 years old back then. An artist who recently moved into the Ford building in Balboa Park, terming it a cultural center, was arrested in the patio of the police station. The Ford building, which is right across over here, was loaned to me to create a mural that Corky Gonzalez had requested from the students to come, the first Chicano student conference to ever be held He called for all the students. During this time period, Reyes Lopez Tejerina, another great voice, a spirit moving us prior to this period, had occupied and taken over Tierras Amarillas and arrested the sheriff, the judge, all of the racists, because they had been taking the lands away from the familias. So we were in a very, very crucial period. And we kept thinking during all this time about you, our futuro, our fuerza, our coraje, our amor. You are here because of us, and you will continue to grow. One of your students said today she wanted to be a professor. She can be a professor. You want to be a doctor, you can be a doctor. You want to be an artist, whatever you want to be, you can accomplish it. Now I'm going to tell you the story about the occupation of the Ford building in Balboa Park. Once I was in there, I began to recruit students. I went to City College, I went to State, San Diego State, in an effort to recruit artists to come, and we were going to have art exhibits. Never before had we anything like this. Thank goodness to the professors and the students of City College who came up with the idea to create a Centro Cultural de la Raza. They were the ones that came up with a proposal to create a Centro Cultural de la Raza. You, today, are in this school. And it's the professors who have given their corazón, their spirit, their ánimo, and their ganas, and their coraje to you, to carry on, go further than what we have done. In the Ford building, there was this huge round building, a rotunda. And I took it over, we blockaded the doors, and I used the science tables to become part of the walls inside the Ford building. At that time, Luis Espinosa, one of the oldest Chicano artists, was by my side. And it was him that was also my inspiration. The city finally decided, you know, you better get out of there. Salvador, we will give you $22,000 if you get out of the Ford building, and you can have this water tank or the other one. And then they said, and if you don't want this one or the other one, we'll give you the firehouse over there on Marston Point. We want you out of the Ford building. And then they said, if you don't like the firehouse or any of these two buildings, there is a building across from Salazar's over there on 16th and Market. Across from Salazar, we'll give you a building there. And then they said, if you don't like that, we will build you a studio in Spanish Village. Y les dije, no. The raza has spoken. To me, the word raza means humanity. Es la humanidad, la raza para mí. Así me enseñó mi papá, que nunca tuvo un día de escuela. Nosotros salimos de los campos. Comencé desde chiquillo, piscando algodón, chícharo, nuez, uva, chabacán, ciruela, flores, desayjando con el asadón cortito. So my world was in the campus, en los baños, and in the San Joaquin Valley. Now I come back to San Diego in 1942 because of the war. My mother works in the cannery, my father works in the cannery, and then my mother goes to work in the aircraft companies. But the punto is this: nosotros que tenemos padres que nunca han ido a la escuela, o abuelos, tíos, ustedes son la luz para ellos. Nunca se les olvide. Respeten a su mamá, a su papá, a su abuelita y a su abuelito, y todos de la familia. Eso es la fuerza de la raza. Si nosotros comenzamos a respetarnos uno mismo, va a haber más y más entendimiento y más amor. We learn from our elders. We need to respect our mothers, our fathers, our grandmothers, and our grandfathers, our uncles and our aunts. Un día se llegó donde hicimos un anillo de la tierra en Chicano Park. Invitamos todos los jefes de la medicina, de los tribus, de las reservations aquí en San Diego, el condado. Todos vinieron con un saquito, con un costalito chiquito, y comenzaron a rezar. Y uno de ellos dijo esto: tell all our little brothers and sisters that we must respect Mother Earth, that we must learn to respect the water, the land, the air, the fish, the birds, and all the animals. That this is our duty for the new generación, la raza nueva, el espíritu de Aztlán. And so when they came to me and they told me to move out of the fort building, les dije yo a mis compañeros, yo no me voy a salir, aquí vamos a morir. No, Salvador, no, eso no es necesario. Ok, si ustedes quieren seguir el centro, persíguenle, pero yo me voy a ir al barrio de vuelta y voy a tratar de buscar la manera en que se puede crear este parque que los ancianos ya habían pedido, y ustedes tienen la evidencia. ¿Cómo se hizo? Bueno, once the artist said, no, Salvador, we don't want to die here, yo estaba aferrado. I was very, very determined. And so they came to the fort building, out of the fort building to this tank. The other one was still empty. Now I need to tell you this. This is a round building. It's 360 degrees round. The mentality here starts to divide it into the 90-degree principle. It's like putting a square peg in a round hole. We are not taking full advantage of the full, beautiful roundness of this building. Guillermo Aranda said, Salvador, let's start the mural here and we'll go all the way around inside. I said, yes. Y comenzó Guillermo Aranda to do this mural here. However, he never finished. And it's unfinished. And also, I want to give thanks to all of the volunteers that have come to the Centro and worked real hard. Marisol is one of those volunteers that have come here and done her best to create these exhibits. She's dedicated herself in a very kind-hearted way, and many others. In the days of our time period, nobody had to be told nothing. We didn't have to tell you, hey, let's move the chairs here. The students picked up chairs up, they picked up brooms, and they got mops, and they worked because that's what we were doing. Nobody told them, go do this, go do that, go do this. They saw something that had to be done, they did it. That's the way that the animo happens. So, we're in a round building, and we have to think like 360 degrees. The next time you cut a tomato in half, look at the tomato. See how the tomato is constructed. The next time you cut a pepino, look at the pepino. We can't be working with little squares here, little squares there. We have to think of it as round. So here comes the World Beat Center. The World Beat Center is doing exactly what I had envisioned. They began just like the Centro, and they started digging and planting. I want to give you my vision of this Centro here. The vision is this. It goes up 4 stories up. And in each floor, there's a discipline. We heard the teatro here today. This is the way it's been. Sometimes there were musica over here, teatro over here, and somebody painting over here. We need to grow aesthetically. We need to be sensitive to our environments. I am so happy that you're here because we're still in a struggle. We're still trying to better ourselves. And that's part of it. And I'll give you a very good example. Stephanie Cervantes and Estela Gama, 2 ladies that are working with me on the mural. Estela, she has had several exhibits here, and so has Stephanie. To me, they are the youth, they are the power of our movimiento. And they are doing everything possible to get to the top of their skill. Estela has a little child. How old is she, Estela?
9.
9 years old. And that little girl is already pintando. And on top of that, that little girl has already sold paintings. Fíjese. Look how successful this is. Even though que estamos aquí in the struggle, we're doing our best. We're actually doing our best. And it can be better and better and better, and that's what we intend to do. So, when we took over the Ford building, we had the flag of Aztlán hanging in the Ford building. The flag of Aztlán came out of the Ford building, and a young man climbed up a light pole and hung the flag of Aztlán on a light pole in Chicano Park. Guillermo Aranda had designed the flag of Aztlán with 5 little caracoles like this, which meant California, Arizona, New Mexico, Colorado, and Texas. These were the 5 states of Aztlán. more and more we began to discover that the Nahuas had come out of these areas, which also included Utah and Nevada. So this is our future. This is the future to come. We have ideals, and when you become the seniors of our community, there will be youth following you. Show a good example. Show the best example you can for them. The rest of the vision is this: 4 stories high. At the second story, there's a skywalk that goes out to meet the World Beat Center, who is also 4 stories high. This is the vision. We have vision. We have dreams. We have ganas. This is what we can do. 4 stories high with a walkway that goes across over here. And between here and the World Beat Center, fountains, sculpture, flores, plantas, pathways. So it will look beautiful. You go to the barrios and you see our little casitas. All of them have their little jardincitos. Some of them have their animalitos, which brings me to remind me of Roberto. Roberto is writing a story that is very, very important today. The story is this: his home was fumigated by pesticides. An airplane went over his house and dropped the fumigation, and he tells me that the moment that happened, in the trees, todos los insectos cayeron como lluvia. Mariposas, moscas, all of those insects instantly fell dead. Then he said all of his animalitos died. His chivas, his marranitos, his conejitos, his patos. It destroyed his family. But he never gave up. He's writing. He's writing about this. And we also would like to make a little teatro about it. It is so dynamic and it's so powerful and it's so hurtful that if we could turn it around a little bit so that the children would understand what the difference is between the pesticides in the files, the pesticides in the water, and in the air. People are contacting more and more discomforting diseases from these pesticides all up and down the Central Valley of San Joaquin. Very quietly, we're being poisoned. Very quietly, nadie dice nada. Roberto has a torch, and he's lit that torch. And he wants to talk about it. But we're going to do it in such a manner that it will be understood. Because he didn't sit back and let it all happen. He started writing to Ted Kennedy, Barbara Boxer, and others. And you know what? They never answered him. And when they did, they said it was too political. Too political. The agribusiness is so powerful that even Cesar Chavez strangled them for a while, and then les soltaron los Teamsters and other people to create disharmony in our community. I tell you this because I'm trying to make you aware of the real problems that we have that can be overcome. They can be overcome. And so, how do we get up to 4 stories high? San Diego made the first glass elevator in the El Cortez Hotel. Everybody would love to get on the elevator and go up and look out at the city. A glass elevator. It was actually a plastic. That's how we can get up and down from our Centro. And how we can be integrated, not just Chicanos, Mexicanos, but we want to see like what's so wonderful that Marisol is doing is she's bringing in artists from Peru, Costa Rica, Argentina, Ecuador. We are so fortunate to have someone like her that has got vision and animo to do something good. And so we have right now a director of the museum who is also a Latina, who has yet to come here and address her viewpoints to us, to la mujer, and to the cultura. It's been so long. Balboa Park was monolingual and monocultural. There was no bilingual, no bicultural. Poco a poquito, they're starting to change. And we need to get that change going more. So, with this, I would like to field some questions from you. Please. ¿Tienen preguntas? Por favor, hágamelas y yo trataré de contestarlas a lo mejor que pueda. A ver, ¿quién tiene preguntas? No se espanten, no tengan miedo. Don't be afraid. Ask some questions. Porque si no hay preguntas, no va a haber nada. Échenle una pregunta. Allá.
What about the other 2 stories?
The other what?
The vision.
Oh, the vision?
Yeah.
Okay, we got 4 stories going up and 1 going down. A basement. And in that basement, there's a tunnel that connects to the other World Beat Center where they have a basement. And in that basement is the radio and TV studios. We need to have radio and we need to have television where we can talk about our sentimientos, where we can talk about our issues y no nos van a cortar. Right now, if we have something to say, Channel 8 no te lo va a dejar. Neither Channel 6 or Univision, they won't tell you. We need to have our own TV stations and our own radio stations para platicar y hablar sobre el movimiento. Y hay otra cosa muy importante, los nativos. Muy raro que se oiga, oh, the president is going to visit an Indian reservation. Nada. Those reservations are so dry and poor. Yes, they have casinos, but that's not the answer. They were the first nation here, many nations, not just one tribe, they were nations. And they knew more about the land than anybody. Las hierbas, they knew all about the hierbas. Los animales, they knew all about the animales. And so, very rarely do you hear a president visiting a native reservation in the United States. We must never forget, cuando comenzamos era chicano, indio y mexicano. Poco a poquito, la política se levantó y después cuando se levantó era chicano, mexicano y el indio. Ahora ni el indio se encuentra in our rhetoric. And so, no nos vamos a olvidarnos de los nativos de este terreno, ni los nativos de México o cualquier lugar, porque ellos han vivido. When you go visit Chicano Park, and I invite you, I would be very happy to lead a tour of your faculty, of your students to Chicano Park. And in one mural, you will see a skeleto, which represents the huesos of all of our ancestors that have lived in this continent. The artists have been bringing to you the best that they can possibly do for you. Their ideals, their fears, their power, following the great steps of our great masters like Siqueiros, Orozco, Rivera, Tomayo, Anguiano, muchos, Frida Kahlo, que nos enseñaron por medio de su trabajo. Bueno, otra pregunta, lidiar de tener un subterráneo for the media, our media, and a tunnel that connects to them. You want to know more about the ideals? Every floor would have a discipline. Painting, danza y teatro y música. We had jewelry here one time. We had ceramics here at one time. I did a presentation for the World Culture event at City College. Professors came up to me and they said, Salvador, why don't you consider the overpasses from Chicano Park to City College to be embellished with murals? Y dije yo, fíjese qué buena idea es esa. To make a promenade from Chicano Park to City College. Then I hear you have new buildings. We could embellish them. The ideal is to include tile and mosaic. They'll last a long, 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 long time. In colors. And all done by the students. Directed by teachers like these young women over here who have the potential of being good teachers. They're ready to teach. They're ready to start doing murals with students. And there's more. There's a lot more. I want to tell you one more thing. We are in the beginning stages of a renaissance. A Chicano mural art renaissance. In the beginning stages. Then there will be a mid-period. And then there will be a high period of our renaissance. I may not see it, but those that are coming up, just like that 9-year-old child who loves to paint. And you know other people that like to paint. And maybe you want to paint too. You're welcome. So we are engaged in a real, genuine renaissance. How do you evaluate that? Number one, when I organized the murals and the artists to do our first murals, they were all very, very young. At that time, I was 33 years old. Guillermo Aranda, Victor Ochoa, Mario Torero, and all the other artists were very young, but very full of enthusiasm, full of ganas, full of wanting to do something. And now they did. And then soon they left. They went to Cuba, they went to Mexico, they went throughout the United States to paint murals. They learned new techniques. That's part of a renaissance. New techniques. Then we started working with new paints. That's part of a renaissance as well. Then I began advocating as much as possible a democratic process. Let me also make you aware that the murals in Chicano Park were not done by one person. It was a collective. It was a collaborative. Artists coming together, discussing things, and sometimes one artist would dominate. But the idea is we try to reach out. Everybody's ideas is just as important. Right now, these two artists are assisting me to restore 490 feet long mural on Cesar y Chavez Waterfront Park area. It's 25 feet high. 490 feet. The first artists there were Gloria Torres, Luis Espinosa, and myself, and then we had people from Oceanside come and work with us. People from the schools would come and work with us, volunteer, just like at Chicano Park. That's what makes us different from wanting just to be me, me, me. And that's what's happening with the graffiti people right now. It's their name and their location, and that's it. There's no other care about that. Right now, we have an overpass that goes from one side of Chicano Park to Chicano Park. That overpass is full of graffiti. They want to create. They're artists. They want to create. But the idea that they're engaged in right now is more anarchistic. It's not so much democratic, and it isn't so much about the community or a future. It's about their world. Everybody has a right to talk about their world. But these graffiti artists have literally destroyed children's art there in Chicano Park. And so we have to think about how can we help them? Put them in the right direction if there is a direction for them. And so the ideal is to serve everybody in the community. Los que van a la escuela y los que nunca han ido a la escuela. Los niños y los viejos. Los pericos y los perros. Everything should be considered in our community. Buena comida, amor, and it's okay to have coraje and to have a little bit of hatred, because that's who we are. That's who we are. So the graffiti has to be addressed. We have to really work with them. Ayudarlos, darles su dirección y enseñarles que están destruyendo todo el trabajo que hemos hecho. Y yo sé que ellos tienen sus ideales también, y nosotros tenemos que tener ese entendimiento. They have their ideals, and we need to understand them. Preguntas, por favor. Yes.
Primeramente quería darle las gracias por darnos su testimonio.
Sí.
Y quería saber cómo reaccionaron sus padres mientras que usted estaba involucrado en todo este movimiento. Dijo anteriormente que lo habían hasta arrestado.
Sí.
¿Cuál fue la reacción de sus padres? Porque a veces hay como ese conflicto intergeneracional que no entienden, o estate quieto, no te metas en problema. Quería saber un poquito más sobre eso.
The question is, how did my parents react? By this time, my mother had already passed away, y vivía yo con mi papá. Mi papá decía, hijo, unos se ponen en un lado y los pobres se ponen en otro lado. Los ricos en un lado y los pobres en otro lado. So, él también tenía un gran corazón para los nativos y le dolía mucho cómo sufrieron ellos. Y cuando me arrestaron a mí esas varias veces, él también tenía compassion for me. So that is something that we need to understand. The parents, your parents, want you to live happy, peaceful, and not to be beat up by the police. During the 50s and 60s, we were consistently beat up by the police, especially here in San Diego. And it wasn't until we formed ourselves into Los Gallos, a club jacket club. And then there was the Lobos. And then there was the Yellow Jackets, the Bean Bandits. And then came Los Chicanos. We had a president, a vice president, a secretary, a sergeant of arms, and a historian. If you Google my name, Salvador Roberto Torres, and you go to CEMA, C-E-M-A, which is at the University of Santa Barbara, and you go to Los Gallos album, you'll see that in the 50s, when our parents were so concerned about us, they wanted us to be correct. They wanted us to be good citizens. We did everything we could to be good citizens. We had a theater in Barrio Logan that was called the Cornet. And then we rented the theater for the children. We gave them 100 free cartoons. And then people in our club became ill or there was a car accident, and we raised money for them to help them. So our parents saw that we were involved as a social club. The Mechas are one of the best examples of a good social club because they're interested not only in just socializing, they're interested in the issues of our community. How can we improve ourselves? What are the issues of the immigrants? What have been the issues of the farm workers? What are the issues about our education? How can we support our faculty? What can we do to help the students become better students? This is the Mechas. This has been the Mayas as well. And so the student groups are very important, just like you are. So our parents were concerned about us, and we in turn were concerned about them. So we were not just traviesos. You know, we went and played the guitars, and we had our white port and shake 'em ups, lemon juice, and we had our virongas. At that time, we were not smoking weed. You know, that was, yeah. But then we discovered it. Like everybody else. So that was what we did. We tried to work, and we honored our parents. So that's one of the methods that we used at that time. Otra pregunta, por favor. Sí.
Por ejemplo, a mí me gusta la pintura. No soy una artista profesional, pero sí me gustaría aprender más de lo que sé. Me gusta mucho la pintura de imitación, pero si usted solicita personas voluntarias, yo puedo hacer una voluntaria. Nada más que para eso necesitaría usted enseñarme.
Muy bien. Aquí en el centro se necesitan voluntarios y hay muchas cosas que hacer. Por ejemplo, montar exhibiciones, o si hay un proyecto en la pintura, como el otro día habían voluntarios trabajando atrás del centro. Es muy bueno que se pongan en comunicación con el centro. También denos una pasada ahí a César Chávez en Harbor Drive a mirar lo que estamos haciendo, porque las mujeres también necesitan algo. Se cae una brocha de la escalera o necesitan agua. Speaking of agua. Oh boy. Wait till I tell my daughter about this. ¿Qué pasó, Daddy? Me callé. ¿Pero cómo? Se durmió la pierna. Now I know next time I'm just gonna sit and talk to you guys. It's better. Otra pregunta, por favor. Sí.
Do you ever see, I'm a young person
Yes.
from this community, and I would like to see more, do you ever see science being integrated into these things? Because when you think about it, you have a lot of people that have a lot of influence, and then they're like doctors, and let's say I want to be a doctor, and I get
Good.
there. So I would like to see, more of my people as well joining together. Do you see that integration here as well?
I'm going to share a vision with you. Chicano Park is the beginning stages of going all the way to the bay and across. All of those columns have the potential of having a variety of themes. One theme can be la medicina, doctors. Another theme could be the legal arena, lawyers, trials, prisoners, all of that. Jose Montoya came from Sacramento, and he made a painting of the father like this with his arms out, the mother, and the child has a book in his arms. And the book says leyes. And I must remind you that there's laws to everything. There's laws to science, architecture, medicine, mathematics, and there's law and order también. So the children go by there and they look at this little boy holding a book that says leyes. It's telling them, you could be a lawyer. You might even be a judge. So that's how it works. Our imagery provides you with food for thought. And that's how the artists have been trying, because we were having coalition meetings in California in the 60s and 70s. What is a coalition meeting? We would have a meeting of all the artists. ¿Qué es lo que se necesita en la comunidad? Centros culturales. Here we are. And so Mexicano Center was set up in Los Angeles. A centro was set up, Centro de la Raza in San Francisco. The Posadas Centro was set up in Sacramento. And throughout Aztlán, we've had centros. So the ideals are still germinating and growing. So the point here is, yes, the themes that you're asking for are still growing. And we're going to see more of them. Does that satisfy your question a little bit?
Yes.
A little bit?
Yes.
Okay. Otras preguntas, por favor. Sí.
It's been 43 years, right?
Yes.
Roughly since then. Why hasn't? What about the funding? Where's the funding coming from? And in those 43 years, don't you think we should have progressed a little bit more?
The question is, after 43 years, how come we have not progressed like we could about the funding? My only answer to that has been that even though we had made a dent, a little bit of a dent here in Balboa Park, and we even threatened them at one time with the burning of a building, and the building did burn. And that after it burned, they went after the Ford building and said, we're going to build our museum over there, so you better get out. And the building burned. But that's not the solution. The solution is based on political understanding. There was never, ever an arts commission. With the Chicano Park murals, all of a sudden, there was a need for a commission. And they did finally establish a commission. They hired Victoria Hamilton. Very rarely did we see Victoria Hamilton supporting the barrio or the centro. So politically, we became marginalized. Politically, we were subject to racism. It's called covert racism. El racismo por acá abajo. Overt racism is cuando ya it's here out in the open. Think about this. We are going to be a big population very soon in California. You know why? We love to love. We do. And we have 2, 3, 4, 5 children because we love to love. And we have big familias. Those familias are going to grow. Right now we have a big tax. We pay a lot of taxes. We pay a lot of taxes. But none of those taxes come to the centro. And so we need to become involved. Today we have a wonderful opportunity with the new mayor, Bob Filner. I'll tell you why I have faith in him. He was the only one who rescued the Jose Moya del Pino murals. Jose Moya del Pino was a Spanish artist. He was a court painter. He painted in the court of Spain. He painted the king, Alfonso XIII. And while he was painting the king, he asked the king, can I go into the Prado and paint after Diego de Velázquez? And the king said, sí. So Jose Moya de Pino goes into the Prado, paints 42 paintings after Diego de Velázquez. He learns how to mix the paints. He learns about how to stretch the canvases. He learns everything he can about Diego de Velázquez. The king turns around to Moya and says, I want you to be the ambassador to take these 42 paintings to the United States to show the American public and to develop the appreciation of Spanish art. And so he did. He arrived in New York in 1925. When he arrives in New York, the Spanish Cultural Center in New York, they embrace him. The Spanish-speaking center in New York is the one center who developed the museum here in Balboa Park, the art museum. It was the Spanish-speaking information center in New York. That's why when you walk up to that museum and you see Diego de Velázquez and you see Murillo, the statues of them, we have a wonderful cultura. We not only have native cultura, but we have Spanish cultura. And for some reason right now, we don't have that great appreciation of the Spanish art like we could. So They invited Jose Moya de Pino to come to the United States. He came, and he went to New York, Washington, and then from Washington he went to San Francisco. And in San Francisco, he painted in the Coit Tower in San Francisco during the WPA period. They invite him to come to San Diego, and he paints in the Aztec Brewery here in Barrio Logan. He paints a mural. And so this whole idea of cultura is such a profound, we have thousands and thousands of years of cultura. And we have been neglected. The taxes, like he said, why is it that we have 43 years and yet we haven't gotten what we really deserve? Tenemos que hacer eso, alguna manera. Politically, aesthetically, we need to grow. We need to understand ourselves and reach that level where the taxes that we're paying come to our cultural center, come to our communities. And so Bob Filner at that time was our councilman. And they were going to tear down the Aztec Brewery, they were going to destroy the mural. He saved it. He actually saved it. And he passed a resolution that if the Mercado del Barrio was to be built, that the Jose Moya Pino, they called it the art ensemble, would go there. Well, it turned out they wanted to put it in a restaurant. Can you imagine a court painter being shown in a restaurant? A court painter deserves to be in a museum, not a restaurant. So I oppose that. I oppose it on the grounds that is not sufficient understanding of our true culture. Because I believe this, we stand by authenticity. It has to be authentic in order for it to be real. Authenticity. And so I promoted the idea of an information center to be built there in Chicano Park. Every day, now that Chicano Park has become a national historic site, people are coming, they wander around, they take pictures of the murals and everything, but they don't know who did what. They don't know nothing. An information center, they could go to the information center. Who painted that? There it is, right there. All the artists' names, all the recognition of the artists. Where are the artists today? Are they alive? Have they passed away? What shows did they make? Not only the artists, but in the community, how many different art forms are there? There's musicians, there's charros, there's danza, writers. All of this is important for us to be in that information center. Say you have a class and your professor says, okay, we're going to the information center. You go there and pick out a mural and write about it. You go to the information center, oh, I'm interested in this mural here. They give you all the information, and it's up to you to put it together to make your comments. What do you think of that? Are you for an information center?
Yes.
Sí o no?
Yes.
Sí?
Sí.
Pregunta.
I think it should be more than an information center. It should be a place where people can go there as well, do art, be informed
Yes.
and participate and be more active, because we need our young generations to be more involved in the process of what is going around the communities. Information center would be nice, but I think being involved in the arts. I have students that want to participate there. How do they contact the artists? How do they get involved? How do they inspire them? That would be a vision that I wish can happen there, but we need a place over there too.
Yes.
That's my belief.
Yes, I agree with you. the seniors, they got together and they said, we need to have a cultural center there as well. And they wrote up all the plans for it and everything, and we have it, but it hasn't been implemented. Professor Macias, would you give me a time schedule?
I think we can, one of you actually is allowed students to mingle.
Yes.
So we can do that.
Okay, let's go see the art in the gallery. I want everybody to go over there and wander around for a little bit, ask questions, mingle, and then as your professor suggests, for you to consider other strategies that he may have for you. So please, let's go over and see the art.